Right now, we are with Dr. Tangnirand, the Director China Studies Center of Chulalongkorn University, and we're going to talk about world order. So usually when we are at subject of world order, usually people just talk about China and US, but I'm wondering, where is Thailand?
I think that Thailand will be in an important position in this coming new world order. But first, we have to understand that I think the world order is now what a lot of people call multiplex world order.
Even though the current one, what's going on right now, it's moving toward that
Moving
direction.
toward that direction,
Right.
Meaning that moving toward a more complex and disoriented world order.
Disoriented as well.
Yes. Because I think it's the end of American dominance.
Right.
You know, I think in the past 30 to 40 years, especially after the end of the Cold War, we see very clearly the leadership of the US. But right now, after 4 years of President Donald Trump, right? And you know, the rise of China, right? We see that not only the US has less influence in a lot of world sphere, but also we see that China has increased influence and increased initiatives in the world. So we see the new balance between the two superpowers, the US and China. And to answer your questions, where Thailand stands, I think Thailand stands that in this middle road, right?
Middle road.
And we need to find a balance between these two superpowers.
Talking about Thailand, you said earlier today that Thailand has potential in geopolitical games.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say someone has potential, it means it's not happening yet, right? So how can we change that potential to be capability?
Yeah, but I think that when we say potential, we mean that it will happen, it will have potential if we do something.
Right.
So how? So we have to do more, right? And how? I think that first, I think we need to understand clearly what our positions are in different dimensions and different issues. And I think there's no one-size-fits-all answers, right? I think we have to think separately in different issues. What are our position in the health issues, the vaccine issues, the economic issues, the trade issues, right? And so I think that, you know, it's the end of the era of one clear-cut answer. Right. Oh, we are just friendly to everyone. Right. But I think we have to have a clear analytics in different issues. So that's first. Second, I think that we also need to understand our new bargaining power. Because I think that with the change in...
And we do have bargaining.
We do have a bargaining power because with the change in geopolitics, we are not just a small nation. I often say that right now, Thailand and also ASEAN as a whole, as a group, is now a middle power to a certain extent.
Right.
Because you know, both the US and China have to rely on us strategically, right? So if we understand this new bargaining power, it will help us in thinking about our negotiating position, both in when we negotiate with China, but also when we negotiate with the US. The third point, and I think this is very important, is that we will have potential if we know how to mitigation. So not just relying on China or relying on the US, but right now with the multiplex world, it's not only the US or China, but we see the rise of India, the rise of Russia, the former Soviet Union
trying to come back.
Trying to come back, right? And also Japan is still an important partner, but also we can find opportunities in other regions as well. For example, Latin American region, Africa, Central Asia, right?
I was going to ask, is Central Asia still in a play?
Yes, and especially with the Belt and Road Initiative of China, the central point of that initiative is both ASEAN and also Central Asia. And Central Asia has a huge potential for economic development because it's still, right now it's still at a low level of economic development, but I think it has huge potential both in terms of its natural resources and young population.
And with the Belt and Road Initiative, how is it going to proceed after COVID-19, and how is it going to benefit Thailand as a whole?
That's a very good question because with the COVID-19, we see that China is right now refocus its energy back to its domestic issues. When we see Xi Jinping's speech last week, major speech in Shenzhen, or Premier Li Keqiang's speech to the National Assembly, they all talk about mainly domestic issues, and very few lines mention Belt and Road Initiative or just mention in names. So I think that the pace of the initiative will be slower than in the past because China right now, I think its focus is financial resources and attention to its domestic problems after the COVID pandemic. But in the long run, I think that it will still be a signature international policy initiative of China because for China, it's also help solve its own problems, by trying to engage with the world, trying to find new markets after the trade war with the U.S. So all of this also important to China's domestic problem. In terms of Thailand, I think that Thailand is a part of the Belt and Road Initiative. That's no question. And we see a lot of signature projects. For example, the Thai and Chinese high-speed rail, right? So I think that for us, we need to keep building on this basis of cooperation and also try to engage with China and seek opportunities. And right now, with the COVID, for example, on the vaccine front, last week, the foreign minister of China visited Thailand and reassured Thailand, So there's still a lot of rooms of engagement with the Belt and Road Initiative.
Talking about signature, the trade war is also Trump's signature. And beside Belt and Road, the South China Sea, what's going on? It's also Chinese signature as well. Would there be a point that Thailand cannot not choosing standpoint, not having standpoint anymore? Will there be a point that the situation forces us to pick something?
Well, we see a lot of signature policies in this a couple of years. We see Trump's trade war. We see China's conflict in the South China Sea, and then Thailand's position amidst these issues. Right. I think on the South China Sea problem, I think Thailand has a very clear and consistent policy. Right. We are. First, we emphasize both parties or many parties, right? Because there's a lot of multi-parties that have conflicting claims there to engage peacefully in terms of dispute resolution. And I think Thailand is in a very strong position because we don't have any conflicts in that area, right? So we can help mediate between different parties also.
I don't think we have been doing anything like that.
We are not proactive enough. That might, but I think that, especially our position in terms of in the previous ASEAN meetings, I think we also have a very consistent policy that we are not, favoring anyone. There, right? And I think that's a good start.
That's a good start. Okay, but come back to the question. So you don't think there will be a point that Thailand really have to pick a side, right?
First of all, I think that one of the characteristics of this Cold War competition between these two superpowers is that they try to link different dimensions with each other. For example, they might turn up the heat in the South China Sea in order to benefit from trade negotiations.
Right.
They turn up the heat on human rights issue in China, in Xinjiang, in Hong Kong.
Everything can be a tool.
yes, a tool for negotiations in different dimensions. But we do hope that when they turn up the heat, they don't turn it too much,
Too
right?
high.
Too high, up until it will burst, or it will turn from the cold war into a hot war. And I think that both sides, I still hope that they will find enough wisdom to balance.
Right. So what would be the biggest challenge for Thailand in terms of positioning itself within the geopolitics, and what would be the best way to overcome this?
Well, I think the major challenge is that it will be a lot trickier, than in the past, because in the past, with a very clear American dominance, right? And we all have this world order with all these international organizations playing a role. We say it's a multilateral world, right?
So we know who
we know
have
who
to
we
kiss.
have to. Well, we know who we have to kiss, who we have to coordinate. We know the game,
Right.
right? Right now, I think perhaps the game is quite different, right? And I think that it's turning from a science into an art, right? And in that, I think we need to be very flexible. Also, we need to keep the balancing act, right? We don't need to rely much on either side. We need to mitigate our interests. And these are all major challenges in the foreign policy perspectives.
Definitely.
Talking about challenges, China will have Xi Jinping as their leader. I don't know, maybe not forever, but for a really long time. But the political situation in US right now, we know from 4 years ago, the poll doesn't tell you anything. So we don't know yet who's going to be next president. What Thailand should do? Should we prepare anything for the change, for the landscape that will happen after the presidency? What if Joe Biden or if Trump still on the position?
Well, I think we will know very soon, right? In less than a month. And I think that for us, either Joe Biden or Trump, there will be some things that are not changed, some consistency, right? I think that the rise of China, I think that the trade conflict between the two superpowers, the turbulent world that we see at the multiplex world, I think this will still continue.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. ขอบคุณนะคะ
ครับ thank you ครับ